All right, number one, 60 beats per minute coming up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter what fingers you use. 120, 1, 2, 3, 4. One 60, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 200, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2. Whoops. There we go. 60. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, 4. 160. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 200. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, number 3. 60. 1, 2, 3, 4. 120. 1, 2, 3, 4. 160. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 200. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for the next thing, something I want you to think about, or for the theory stuff, a big goal trying to achieve here is memorizing what each type of chord looks like. Rebuilding or building the whole thing up every single time you do this is a tremendous, yes, tremendous waste of time. Because if you can remember what the major shape looks like, you just plug it in. You plug it in. So I want you to really focus on memorizing that major shape, this major shape, and the other ones. And we can certainly do more work to help you with that. But it's good to be able to break the chord down, understand what's being played in case you have to. In case you have to break it down or build it up from scratch. Or if you're just trying to understand a piece of music you're learning. But for stuff like this, piecing it all together, eventually you really got to focus on just knowing what the shape is. Just like knowing that your power chord is this. Just like knowing that major chord is a movable bar chord. Or when you started on the A string, looks the same, but it turns it into a minor chord. So just knowing that that's always a major shape, no matter where you start that thing on the D string, very helpful. So, like when you went from that chord 1 to chord 4, you know, writing out the notes for each chord is fine to see like, okay, well, what is shared between the two? In this case, the F. So that's an automatic B flat over F because F is in the bass. And then you think about, okay, well, what would those notes be? It's like, is F going to be the 3? Certainly not, because that's too far away. So F being the 5 of B flat tells you that's the second inversion. So when you're doing the inversions to go from one to the next, think about it that way too. Like, well, is this the first version or first inversion or the second inversion? So big thing when filling this out, try and just think like, well, what is that shape? What is the shape? And keep using that shape, which is why I didn't want to have a cheat sheet for this stuff. Because the idea is to get you to think about what is that shape. Because when it comes down to it, the only shapes you need to do this whole thing, starting down here, that major shape, that minor shape, and that diminished shape. It's the same for here. Major, minor, diminished. Looks exactly the same. And then here it looks a little different because the guitar is tuning. But you got to remember, that's your major chord. And from there, you can just figure the rest out because that's major. You just flat that middle note, which is the third. There's your flat third. You need to make that diminished, flat the top note. And then you got your 1, flat 3, flat 5. Major chord starting on the G string. We got that shape right there. So again, if you can just remember that, then you can figure out the rest pretty quick from there. Just go down flat the third and then flat the 5 for the diminished. So for all the non-inversion or all the root position triads, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 shapes to have down for, I don't know how many chords that would be. Because you can start one of those chords anywhere on the fretboard. Right? So basically 9. Oh, what the heck would that be? Even just like 0 to 12 there, if we count just 4 starting strings. It's well over 40 different things. If you're talking about like, and I'm just thinking like 0 to 12 here, but if we count all the frets up here, yeah, it's definitely over 40 different things that I'm thinking of. So anyway, so first inversion and all that stuff. So like the first inversion major, you know, we got that shape right there. And again, if you forget what the minor stuff looks like or the diminished stuff, just remember the first inversion starts with the third. So if you need to make it minor, just flat that bass note, and then the fifth interval is in the middle. So that turns it into the diminished right there. Major, minor, diminished. That's going to look exactly the same starting on the A string. Major, minor, diminished. Now for this one, let's see. It was a little bit trickier to remember. But if you could think of like, the way I think of it, you take this C major chord right here. The middle notes in there of that chord, that's a major shape right there. So basically taking this a C major chord, making it a bar chord, just move it up, and you're just playing those 3 middle notes, or those 3 middle strings. So there's your major, flat the third for the minor, flat the 5 for the diminished. And then for the major up here, that would be, see now I'm goofing it up right now. It's this one, that's right, boom. So what is that? That's like taking this major chord here and playing the top half of that. So again, take the major chord here, that major shape, and you play the top half. So let's use one you know very well, the F major. So the A note is the third of the F. So there you go. Boom. That is your first inversion major chord starting up there. So again, then your minor, you're just barring everything, and then diminished, again, flat the middle note. I find the second inversion one's a little bit easier to remember because you got the 5-1 is typically just the same fret over and over. So there is your major, first inversion major. Again, it's the same starting on the E or the A string like that. So we need to make it minor. We flat that top note. Need to make it diminished. We flat the bottom note. Major, minor, diminished. And then major, here, you're basically taking this bar chord shape and you're just playing the barred part. 5 1 3, 5 1 3. So, need to make a minor. Basically, it's that A minor shape. So those middle three notes there in the basic open A minor chord, there is your second inversion of a minor. So, and we got the major, minor, and then for diminished, we flat that bottom note, which is taking like this diminished chord shape here, getting rid of the root note in the bass and just playing those top three strings in the shape. Oops. And then for the top one here, you're really just like taking a D major shape and moving that up and then getting rid of the root note down here. And there's your 5 1 3. 5 1 3. And then for the second inversion minor, it looks just like a D minor shape. And then you're diminished. So hopefully all that makes sense, and hopefully that helps you simplify this process. So even like when I'm plugging in a shape, like when I'm changing a major to a minor, I'm not thinking so much about, well, what are all the notes here? I'm just thinking, what's the 1, what's the 3, what's the 5? And just shift the intervals. So I feel that's way easier to think about because you're just thinking about manipulating the first, third, or fifth. And really, you're just manipulating the third or the fifth instead of, am I changing a C? Am I changing a D? Am I changing an F sharp? Am I changing an A flat? Like, it doesn't matter because if the intervals are there, it's already done. You just got to think about changing the 3 or the 5 to get these things to work right. That's it. Just focus on changing the intervals versus thinking every single note that's happening there. Simplify. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, let me know. I'll see you next week.